Pope Leo, he was elected 3 months ago, but he's still not moved in. We think he's going to move in, but there's been a bit of a mystery as to why he hasn't. And one explanation, not confirmed yet, could be that he's having a bit of work done and he's divvying the apartment up into sort of sub apartments because he'd like to have some people move in with him and sort of end the kind of isolation that popes often live in up there.
What would it be like to live with the Pope? A question, let's be honest, very few of us have actually asked ourselves. But 3 months after his election as the first ever American pontiff, Louis XIV is said to be planning to turn the Vatican's papal apartment into something of a flatshare. Now, Tom Kington is a favourite here on our programme. He writes for The Times in Rome. Tom, lovely to talk to you again. So what are these fairly extraordinary arrangements that the Pope is planning?
Well, the papal apartment, which is in the Apostolic Palace at the Vatican, and we can picture it because it's where the Pope emerges from his window to wave at the crowd in St. Peter's. So you know where it is.
Yeah.
And famously, Pope Leo's predecessor, Pope Francis, didn't live there. He chose to live in a busy residence elsewhere in the Vatican because he was a man of the people kind of thing going on there. And so for 12 years, this papal apartment lay empty. Now, Pope Leo, he was elected 3 months ago, but he's still not moved in. We think he's going to move in, but there's been a bit of a mystery as to why he hasn't. And one explanation, not confirmed yet, could be that he's having a bit of work done and he's divvying the apartment up into sort of sub apartments because he'd like to have some people move in with him and sort of end the kind of isolation that popes often live in up there. So people are asking, well, why? And the reason is because Pope Leo is from the Augustinian religious order. So these are friars. This is what he did before he was Pope. And they always live in communities. That you have groups of friars who live together. So this is a Pope who's very much used to living in a community. It's the sort of, the Augustinians have described it as being the sort of the essence of their creed. They get together, they talk with each other, they lean on each other for support, they trust each other. It sounds great, actually. And so what people are saying he might do now is move a kind of gang of fellow friars into the apartment with him so he can continue to have that support network. The apartment is big enough. I think it's about 10 rooms, so they can easily squeeze a few more friars in.
Yes. Now, they are reported to be the leading candidates for these flat-sharing roles, an Italian, a Filipino and a Nigerian, and they manage the papal wardrobe. Does it really take 3 men to manage another man's robes?
I think it's a bit more than that. I mean, there's a lot of robes, but it's not just that. I think it's a sort of ceremonial role. So if they might say, okay, we're going to need 200 seats freed up in St. Peter's for something we're doing, a mass we're doing tomorrow, or we're going to we need a new mitre fast. Go out and get one, or 300 candles yesterday. It's that kind of thing. So it's not just getting his shoes out in the morning.
Right, okay. I understand as well there'd been an issue with damp in the apartment because it had been uninhabited and frankly unloved for so long, and no one likes damp, do they? It's horrible.
Well, I don't know what you do about that. Perhaps a lick of paint, but that's not going to cure it. So perhaps they just need to turn the heating on.
Yes, I mean, there's also that, although you probably don't need it in Rome in the summer. Some of the readers who've responded to your article on thetimes.com haven't taken it entirely seriously. I mean, one woman has put, I just hope he puts his name on the yoghurt. I mean, there is a comic element to this, isn't there? The whole idea of this incredibly important and significant man flat sharing. And then someone else, of course, has gone down the fatuous route and just written, I hope they chip in. What with them being friars and all. But this is a serious issue. And I guess if he's a man who simply takes comfort in the companionship of others, then he's doing the right thing because this is a difficult role he has to fulfill.
Yeah, one Augustinian I spoke to yesterday, I interviewed in the piece, said he would be able to share sort of confidences with his flatmates and be sure that what he said wouldn't go further. So, and I think that's important. You know, if you get home from the office, it's been a tough day being the Pope, and you want to go home and say, "Oh my God, Cardinal, this, that, or the other is such a pain in the neck," and you need to say it to someone to just get it off, get sort of relieve the tension a bit. It'd be great to have Friar Giovanni making you a cup of tea, and you know that he's one of your own, so he's not going to go to the papers and say that.
Okay, well let's hope he doesn't. Is that person you reference real, or is that a figment of your papal imagination, Tom?
I just made that
You
up.
conjured that one up. Okay. When this pope was elected, I suppose because he was American, I made the assumption that he'd be properly outspoken on international affairs. Now I could be wrong, but he doesn't seem to have been. Have I simply missed it, or is he still finding his papal feet?
Well, he's certainly spoken out about things, situations like Gaza. He's been very big on that. What I think he's lacking is the ability to create sound bites that his predecessor Pope Francis had. So Pope Francis would I don't know, sometimes make huge gaffes, or at least would say something memorable, something really kind of out there. And Pope Leo, I think, has deliberately decided that he's not going to be like that. He can be outspoken, and I think he will increasingly be outspoken this autumn as he sort of finds his feet and starts to publish his first papal documents. But certainly, what he's not got is that kind of soundbite friendly manner that Pope Francis had. So, for example, when Pope Francis would come back from papal trips and he'd have his normal press conference on the plane on the way back with all the journalists, he'd always come out with something really really quotable. And I think that Pope Leo, despite the fact that he's American, he's younger, I think that he's decided he's not going to rock the boat like that.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Kington. Who knows? Perhaps when he's settled with the flatmates, he'll be a little more out there with what he says and does.
Becky, thank you for your message. On Virgin Radio earlier, they referred to the Pope's new gaff as the Big Father House.